Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hello, Stray. Good to see you. Hope everything is going well with you today. Auxiliary camera not quite functional right. We will get that going on. And BGD, hello, good morning, good morning. Great to see you. I hope everyone has had a wonderful day. And Austin, hello, good. Welcome, glad to see you. We are going to be talking about Alchemy today. Alchemy's come up a couple of times. I got the lights going for Christmas this morning. So got that hooked up. I got to remember to turn them all on each time. But I like having them. I figured they might as well be for the evening streams and the morning streams since we've got them up. I thought we were talking about alchemy today because I found there's one instantiation of alchemy that I found in role-playing games, which is pretty detailed, and that's inside GURPS Thaumatology. But it's not, I mean, we can look at it, but then also I said that I haven't found the perfect implementation of alchemy yet in a game and does exactly what I want it to do in a game. And we talked about some of the potential problems with that and why that is. But I figure if we take a look at a pretty good implementation of alchemy in a game, There may be others. Good implementation as far as simulating alchemy and trying to make things and build things. Now the problem is, does that integrate into the game very well? That's the issue that we're having here. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. It is inside this book right here. But we've looked at this book before. We looked at this with magic systems. We're going to skip to another part of this book and look at alchemy. But we've got it in PDF, so we'll be able to bring it up digitally. Let's go ahead and sip and breathe. Got Witch's Brew today. Oh, that was an insufficient breath. All right, there we go. I'm going to cut the morning messages a bit short because I think everybody here has probably already seen the Christmas giveaway, and I've shipped out more items. So I'm going to have to update that anyway about what items. Items are still remaining, though I will just tell you about it. But let's go to the morning messages to begin with. Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, new episodes of The Cultists Season 2 are premiering. It's our comedy web show about modern-day Lovecraftian cultists just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand.
Fish are friends, not food.
I'm a little worried about Rob.
Yes, it's happening.
Ever since we tried to summon Cthulhu, he hasn't been the same.
I'm growing gills. My transformation into a deep one has finally begun.
Rob, we don't see any gills.
It's these kids getting involved with all this stuff causes them to go crazy.
There's a live after party after every show with me, Heath. I'm the creator, co-writer, and producer of the show. I also play Steve, and other members of the cast and crew. Catch those live or on replay. If you need to catch up on the Cultist show, both Season 1 and Season 2 are on my YouTube channel. Just go to the playlist. Each episode is about 5 to 7 minutes long. We've also developed a social deduction and miniature game based on the Cultists that we want to launch on GameFound. Check this out. Ready for a Cthulhu Cultist party game of spellcasting and betrayal? Welcome to Ritual.
This is just our gaming group.
Indeed, but your gaming group is all you need to delve into the madness-inducing rituals necessary to summon Cthulhu. Click the link below to visit the GameFound page, follow the project, and learn more.
You've not been further compromised by the Yellow King, have you?
Check out the GameFound page for more about the game and for a brief rundown on how to play. When you follow the game on GameFound, you can get updates about the game's development before the project goes live. And you'll get a free Rob, High Priest of Dagon miniature in battle pose if you decide to back the game when the campaign goes live. There is even an opportunity to get an advanced copy of the rules and participate in the playtest for rules review. We'd like everyone who's a fan of the Cultists to be involved. You can get all of the links you need in the chat or in the description below. The Morning Grind is brought to you by Ravenkeep. That's the company that I set up to publish the things that we are making here on the show. Check out ravenkeep.net. You'll find merchandise from the Cultists, such as mugs and coffee, as well as board games, the Goodnight Sword ebook, and the Terra Tiles pre-order. Terra Tiles are the terrain system that my brother and I developed that I'm currently re-releasing. Terra Tiles are the easiest way to get great-looking terrain on your table. They are bright and colorful and ready to play right out of the box. There's nothing to print, paint, or assemble, and Terra Tiles are large, thick, and durable, being 9 inches from point to point. That's large enough to make setting them up quick and easy, while also being the perfect size to create really varied and organic-looking terrain setups for your table. This reprint is being produced in very limited numbers, so if you want one, you need to put in a pre-order so a box will get your name put on it. The holidays can be a... All right, so I think most people have already been with us for the holiday giveaway as well, so I'm going to cut that off right now. But I was shipping out more stuff, like I said. I have got a list of things, and you can find that in the spreadsheet below, that are available if you need help this Christmas, or you know someone who needs help shopping for Christmas gifts, and some items from the Geekverse. Mainly action figures are left. Click the link below in the description. You can go to the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is updated, and then what items are remaining, and there's a form where you can request them, and they will ship out completely free. So that's what's going on there. All right, let's go ahead and just get into it this morning. It's a Sunday morning. I was trying to decide what to do on Sunday mornings, and I'm kind of still thinking that it was going to be kind of a potpourri. I was asking Inner Light asked Inner Light about being here. Alliston, did I get my action figures in? I did not get mine in. No. I was able to track down the package. They sent me some strange information on it because I was supposed to get it like 3 days ago, but then that was out for delivery 2 days ago. But nonetheless, I was able to get into the DHL website and schedule redelivery. So now they're supposedly to be delivered on Monday, so tomorrow. So I've rescheduled delivery for Monday. So if I get them Monday, that means that it won't be before the morning grind. But that would mean that we'll take a look at them on Tuesday on the morning grind. I'm still nervous about them. I'm still nervous about them because they've been a long time coming, and they're expensive prototypes. BGD says your holiday charity is inspired and commendable. Thank you. Thank you. That's part of the goal. Trying to get in the Christmas spirit here, and that's part of it. And we can all make everything a better place. Okay, so where was I? Okay, alchemy. All right, so let's move on to our topic of alchemy. First, I want to ask if has anyone ever played the game Dragon Lord? Okay, this game, I think, was one of the ones that initially got me interested in algorithm. Oh, the algorithm brought you here? Oh, wow, the algorithm's working? Well, welcome, Slythar. It is fantastic to see you. Welcome to the morning grind. Has anyone, glad to have you part of this. In fact, if you are enjoying this, let me make sure I put out the Discord link as well. That's a reminder for that. So if you find the stream and you want to be part of a positive and constructive community here in the Geekverse, here is a Discord link to the Discord server, the Ravenkeep Discord server, and I think we're making that a great community. So has anyone ever played the game Dragon Lord? Now, this game right here, I'm going to pull this up on the stream here because I was looking for really great pictures, and I don't really have all that many, that I was just able to find. It's an older game, but it says, so that's what the cover looked like. I remember having that box. And you play an alchemist in it. It says, play one of the 3 evil wizards, all competing to find a magical talisman. To do so, the player must hatch, raise, breed dragons, and use them to spread terror and power across the land. Use these dragons and spells to conquer or help numerous villages and cities across the land, while devastating other wizards seeking the control of the land. Dragon Lord introduces different levels of gameplay, which may be categorized as follows. Alchemy. The game introduces a complex process of alchemy. Differing ingredients have positive and negative results in different combinations and different types of magical equipment used for it. Use alchemy to strengthen or even weaken dragons, or use them to cast spells on surrounding villages and cities, as well as some alchemical spells for the player's own benefit. Creating 2 powerful spells in the magic laboratory will introduce an unpleasant explosion in the lab. Ingredients may be obtained through villager tribute or purchased from traveling merchants. Dragon breeding. Players may breed several individual dragons in their castle. Each requires nurturing and patience before they hatch, and even more before they hatch, or after they hatch. Use alchemy spells to help strengthen the dragon eggs, or they may not hatch at all. Dragon mission and political map. The feature given top-down perspective of the political map around the world. Send dragons to wreak havoc on terror of the surrounding villages and cities, or use them to explore the region or even protect villages and cities from enemy dragons. Attacking villages and cities may prompt them to surrender themselves under the player's control, provided the damage is done is enough. And then you can tax them and extract resources from them. And then, of course, dragon combat as well. And you had to have, I remember, a joystick to play, actually, to take command of your dragon and fly it. And so if you don't have a joystick, you couldn't do that part of the game. It just played through it and told you the results of the battle, whether the dragon was fighting somebody else's dragon or whether the dragon was attacking a village. And so I also remember when we got our joystick, that was a big deal because we could start riding our dragons. Oh, so here's what the game looked like. So here were the 3 different alchemists. I always played Bacchum right here, and my brother played a Mertrin, the green monster. Let me Go back to gallery here. Inspecting a town. So this is what it looks like. This is the world map here, because you were in your castle, and then you could go over and start planning your attacks and your dragon's attack and what villages that you had under your control. This is when you went in to put your dragon's egg on one of the incubators, and then it had so much in it. It had so much in it. Now, it was cumbersome. It was really cumbersome, especially the controls, to like get finicky and to work right. So it's one of those games where you really had to sit down and kind of want to play it, right? But you know, especially when you're young, you're like, well, this is all we got, and it's so cool. So you kind of dealt with the finicky nature of it. So this over here was telling you how much longer it was going to take for your dragon egg to hatch. And then over here is like how much heat you're applying to the egg. And you could apply different levels of heat to the egg. And of course, the more heat that you applied to the egg, the faster it would hatch. You'd get the egg hatched in less time. But the dragon would be weaker. If you put less temperature on the egg, it would take longer to hatch, but you would end up with a stronger dragon once it hatched. And you only had so many incubation rooms, so many eggs and so many incubation rooms. And so you had to plan out, like, you know, how are you going to handle that with the dragon? Austin has not played it. Slythar says the cover is awesome. The cover is awesome. And I'm sure I think my uncle bought it. And I am sure that for us, and I'm sure that cover really helped out selling the game. Austin says, this sounds like an early game that would be really different nowadays. Well, it would be easier to implement because, like I said, the controls were so cumbersome. We'd be able to have some really great controls today. And it was definitely a cerebral kind of game. Let me get to the alchemy part of this. So, okay, so that's where your dragons are in the dungeon. And then you can inspect your dragon and figure out what its eyesight is and its speed and its strength and its health overall. And then you can cast spell. You go into your laboratory and brew up a potion for it. Your last month's accounting. Egg number 1, egg number 5, dragons, awards. How much taxes you gained. A merchant has 109 golds and 19 eggs. There's a trader by the name of Yunnan outside you can buy stuff from. Recent happenings. A barbarian rests in Fostic. That's one of the towns. Current ongoing battle. Trannon does battle with Haman. So you could go, if you knew that some, like this town, Killip does battle with Lupon, you could go and aid one of those towns and get the other one on your side and give you a reward. Oh yeah, so okay, so here is the alchemical library. Alchemical laboratory, rather. So you've got all these potion bottles up on the top of the screen, up on the shelf. So those are all of your magical ingredients. And then you've got different ways to prepare those ingredients. Putting it in raw, you would drop the ingredient into, actually, I don't know if you can see my cursor, my pointer. Oh, you can't. So I'm pointing things out that you can't see. But like that one, let's see, so the first one, there's like grind, chop, and something else, the ingredient. And then that fourth one is just putting the ingredient in raw. So you had what ingredients you were going to use. You had what preparation method you were going to use to prepare it. You have down here the Bunsen burner, how much heat you're going to apply to that. And you could turn the heat up. So you had various different levels of heat in order to apply to the ingredient. That mattered. And then over here, this is the condenser. So you're moving from left to right. You then move into the condenser, which would cool something down. And you had various levels of cooling that you could apply. And then it would drop into your potion bottle over here on the other side. And then the more fizzy your potion got, the more potent it was. But yeah, if you got it too fizzy, it would explode. And then you could go and give that potion to a dragon, your town, somebody else's town. You might have been able to cast it on somebody else's dragon, whatever the subject of that was going to be. So this is when you're trading with somebody. And I really hope that it came with a large fold-out poster. tax rate uprising in this village, it came with a poster that I really hope is going to show you. That's flying your dragon when you got the joystick. But I was really hoping that I would be able to find that there are PDFs. At one time, I did find PDF Dragon Lord PDFs because it came with this fold-out poster that told you all about your ingredients. And at one time, I had found it and downloaded it, but I can't find it this morning. But each one of the different ingredients would affect, in order to cast an effective potion, you had to have a director. They called it a director that was specific to a town. Like there were different directors for dragons. It was a different director if you were casting it on yourself. It was a different director if you were going to cast it on a town. So all those different ingredients had different qualities for being a director, which allowed some effect to take place on a subject. And then there were other spell ingredients that were the effectors that told it what type of an effect you wanted it to have. So if you wanted to strengthen a town, you would use the strength ingredient and the strength ingredient for the effector and the strength and the town director. Or you would use the dragon effector and the strength, the dragon director and the strength effector if you wanted to make your dragon stronger, right? And then it had all these alchemical symbols for each one. I may have to find that, and I'm going to have to pull it up on a later stream. So you'd unfold this big poster. It had all of the different ingredients, and there were magical symbols and codes that told you whether that was a good effector or a dragon or an effector or a director for what, and under what conditions and what processing conditions. Does it need to be chopped, or does it need to be heated, or does it need to be whatever? They had all of those different codes on this poster. And so you spend a lot of time going, all right, I got to concoct a spell, and I'm trying to do something to this specific thing to this town or this specific thing to this dragon. And then you would go over and try to put together an alchemical potion. And I thought that was great. I loved that. Like I said, it was kind of clunky and slow, but it was like free form magic alchemy that you could cast on whatever. And so we were always, when my brother and I were playing it, our favorite part was experimenting with different alchemical components and potions in the laboratory and seeing what they did and seeing how fizzy you could make your potions before it would explode. If it exploded, then you stopped having your laboratory for that whole turn. Then it would go to somebody else. I think the game actually was won because you were looking for these magical talismans that were enchanted, or parts of the magical talisman that would allow you to become king. But the parts of the magical talisman are enchanted so that only dragons can see them, which is why you are raising dragons, so that you can go and find these parts of the talisman across the world. I don't know that we ever did that. Like whenever we logged in to play, we just started making potions and hatching dragons and sending dragons out to fight and things like that. But I think that game is one of the reasons why I really loved Alchemy so much. And that game was such a great implementation of Alchemy because Alchemy was your spell casting, and you were intended to spend a lot of time working on your spells, and it was a major part of the game. Slyler says, eat a dragon egg omelet and become a Trogdor. I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, so, let me remove that. And let's go over here then and see that. So that's kind of, to me, that's been kind of what I've always wanted out of Alchemy in games. And of course, I had thought about it a long time ago before I'd actually effectively designed a game. But that it would be so great to return, or could be so great to return to that idea. And that basically every turn is, oh, it's a song. Okay. So I didn't know that. So that every turn you are trying to create spells. But it may be too difficult to do at the table, because the problem with Alchemy is that it takes a long time. It seems to be like a fine thing to do to implement inside that game as a computer game, where most of your time is spent trying to figure out what potions. It's maybe 60%, and then 30% of the time is actually working with your dragons and tasking them and sending them out to conquer villages and things like that, and then everything else in the next 10 minutes or 10% or something like that. So it was a clunky implementation, as I had said, but it was a great implementation of alchemy inside the game. You got to actually be an alchemist. I'm going to bring up the Thaumatology PDF then. So let me add this to the screen. Hide sidebar. All right. So of all of the different games that I have seen that are tabletop, which is not all of them, because obviously I have not seen them all. I know only a very small part of what's out there. Everybody always, we're always coming up with games that I'm not familiar with. But okay, so this game did have an expansion on alchemy in this. And I was excited to see that when we were running, or when I got Thaumatology and I saw alchemy in here. Oh, it's a Trogdar is actually a reference to a dragon in the 1990s web cartoon Homestar Runner. I don't know that one either. So how does alchemy work here? Now, so let's go down to 100 and actually just figure out what alchemy is here. Because I think this is a good alchemy system, or a reasonable alchemy system. And you could do even more. I mean, I think it would be cool. Like it strikes me as almost free-form magic. You know, we talked briefly about like verb and noun magic systems, and we didn't actually get to dive into them. But the effector director system is kind of like a free-form alchemy system. And so something like that could probably be implemented in an RPG kind of based on free-form verb and noun magic. Except for, is it still going to work? Because alchemy is something that you tend to do alone and doesn't make great adventuring. So it still may not work. It may be that we just have to return to a single-player video game or something that implements alchemy the way that we want to. If you want to be real cerebral with your game and sit there and play an alchemist and experiment with alchemical formularies and alchemical ingredients. So, concepts of alchemy. Of course, this book here is supposed to be general so that it covers a bunch of different types of things. So we do say there are several different historical traditions of alchemy. Perhaps the best known of these is what emerged in medieval Europe and eventually contributed information and technology to modern chemistry, which is generally what I talk about when I'm talking about alchemy. But there was this was related to the alchemical practices of the medieval Muslim world, and both in turn derived from older systems. Meanwhile, China produced its own complex alchemical art. In many fantasy settings, alchemy is a practical magical science used to create magical potions and transmute substances. It's generally assumed that since alchemists must work in laboratories with lots of equipment, they're less useful in the field than wizards, which is our problem from the role-playing game perspective. On the other hand, because they follow fixed procedures and use standard tests and equipment, they don't need the special gift or insight, magery, that defines a mage. But alchemy can still be a source of wonder. Or, of course, in any particular game, alchemy is often something that the wizard has, right? Is alchemy actually something in 5th edition? You don't actually have alchemy in 5th edition, do you? You've got alchemy in 2nd edition. You could be proficient in alchemy. So it might be something that your wizard needs. Let's see if I could find that real quick. Alchemy. It was not in the index. It might be a proficiency in here. But you don't have to be a wizard in order to be an alchemist. But on the other hand, lots of wizards use alchemy. So traditional depictions suggest that most alchemists have a great goal in mind, which they may pursue successfully or not for their whole career, unless they become sidetracked. In Europe, this objective was supposed to be the philosopher's stone, originally imagined as a kind of fast catalyst for otherwise lengthy, difficult processes that would transmute base metals into gold. Having been described as a medicine that improves the state of metals by making them into the highest metal, this became seen as a cure for human ills, and perhaps the secret to immortality. Okay, right. Chinese alchemists likewise sought immortality. Alchemists with disadvantages such as obsession, find the philosopher's stone, and delusion, I am close to some great secret, would fit the historical image very well and could be dragged into adventures by the need of funds. Successful alchemists, which is fine, like you can go out searching for stuff, except for like money to support your research. But if you do that, then you are not actually doing alchemy, right? Alchemy and special modifiers. Okay, Appendix A offers many special modifiers for magical activities. We're going to have to take a look at that. The GM may wish to apply these to alchemy. One option here is to assume that materials particularly associated with particular effects of types of magic, perhaps through astrological or elemental resonances, are required components for elixirs that produce similar effects. That would be kind of like an effector. Like, why does this affect, well, or it could be like a director. It could be either one of those. Why does this affect dragons? It's because maybe I'm using dragon's blood. Or why does this produce a heating effect? It may be because I've used ruby dust or something inside of it. It can be more interesting to have special ingredients provide real benefits, though. An especially appropriate rare optional material might give a bonus to alchemy skill if it's available in quantity when making associated an optional material might give a bonus to an alchemy skill if it's available in quantity when making associated elixirs. Another possibility is that such a substance can reduce expenses by substituting for something off the shelf but costly. Also, in that Dragonlord game, there was a chaos idea. That the more bubbly your potion became, not only did it become more effective, but also there was a potential for it to have I guess it was like a random effect. I don't understand exactly what was going inside the game, but some kind of chaotic effect where it would do something else that maybe you weren't completely expecting. And there was one ingredient, I forget the name of it, but there's one ingredient that intentionally introduced chaos into your potion. So you could put it in there and it didn't do anything else as far as affecting or directing, but it did intentionally bump up your chaos effect. So as an example here, in a setting that uses hermetic astrology, see pages 248 to 253, jealousy and music elixirs resonate with the deacons Arcton and Argashalon, respectively. When producing a jealousy elixir, the alchemy must mix dried and powdered maggots and wormwood. Adding cocaine, another bitter and unpleasant ingredients, and powdered cactus and topaz for their connections through Scorpio might merit +1 to alchemy. Setting up the lab in an old slave market could also help. The standard recipe for a music elixir uses the ear of a bat and ground up seashells, including dolphin blood and powdered amethyst, and making the elixir in a lab built in a narrow canyon might earn a +1. For extra fun, in a campaign where astrological effects influence magic, the alchemist might have to begin and end elixir creation at precisely the right instant. Before the cooking starts, he must make an astronomy roll to determine the exact stellar influences. Failure gives him the margin of failure as a penalty to his alchemy roll. Success means no penalty, but also no penalty bonus. The astrological check simply works to prevent mistakes. When using tracking astrological time, see page 85, apply day and month modifiers for the elixir's completion date, not for its beginning date or the date when it's consumed, and triple any penalties. Elixirs are sensitive, and the tiniest unfavorable shifts in governing stars can spoil the whole batch. Also with the increase in, like we were looking at single-player role-playing games yesterday, but we've looked at single-player board games and single-player role-playing games. I wonder if you could do a single-player alchemy game, and that way you don't have to worry about the other players getting bored. Now, all the players could be designing their potions and elixirs at the same time. We did that. We used a simultaneous play mechanic in War of Kings when we were designing War of Kings, and I think that's one of the best parts of the game because it took way too long for all of the players to go in sequence around the table, raising their armies, building out their kingdom, upgrading their settlements and things like that. Other players were just sitting there at the table for way too long while that was happening during playtests. So we decided, hey, why can't everybody just do this at the same time? And that was so much better because then everybody is building and constructing and there's a flurry of activity at the table. You have to just, I mean, it's the honor system as far as, nobody's monitoring what you're doing, so everybody's just has to trust everybody's playing by the rules. But you could, I suppose, use that same kind of system for alchemy. Like, what if you had people on a timer? Like every turn you had a certain amount of time in order to construct your alchemical spells. And then you did that, and at the end of that turn or end of that time, then you applied your spells and then moved dragons or armies or whatever you're going to do in sequence. That might work. So it could be a single player thing because then it wouldn't matter how long you took making your potions, or it could be something that had to be done jointly but at a certain amount of time. That's an interesting idea. Now, a problem there is, are you going to have a random element to the potion creation? Because if it's just you can do that. Roll a die to determine something about your potion. If you're having everybody do that at the same time across the table, you're asking everybody to also, not cheat on dice rolls. I don't personally have a problem with that. Because if we're playing the game, we just got, the part of the thing is that nobody's gonna be cheating. So everybody's focused on their own thing, but you're doing your thing. Other people would. But if there are no dice rolls in the magic system, if there's no dice rolls in alchemy, then you could theoretically track back everything that happened. Now, that'd be dice rolls. Could be dice rolls in other parts of the game. But if it's just, hey, 2 of this and 1 of this and 1 of that creates this type of potion, and 1 of this and 1 of that and 1 of that is this type of potion, then the person either has the materials or they don't. There still might be some possibility of cheating, but it should theoretically be able to be tracked back if there's a question, right? If there's a die roll involved, you wouldn't have that. Creation is always a hassle. Yeah. Austin says. The Cabal and Academy. The Cabal, page 84, uses alchemy, applying decantic and other modifiers to its processes. I think that's something for a particular world. So we've got schools of alchemy here, and then also alchemy as a spiritual discipline. Schools of alchemy. In both fiction and reality, the term alchemy is used for several different practices. While they may owe something to each other, they have distinct methodologies and goals. This suggests the alchemy skill might require specialization. Remember in GURPS that everything is its own skill. So alchemy would be its own skill. And possibly a skill set with specialization. Cross defaults depend on the degree of communication and shared assumption between the groups of alchemy. In a game based on real-world history, alchemy European and alchemy Islamic might default to each other at -2. They share ideas and texts, but come from notably different cultures. Both derive from alchemy ancient Hellenic, which mystics would say has its share of lost secrets, so they both default to and from that specialty at -2. Tech level modifiers may also apply. European and Islamic alchemists generally operated at tech level 3 and 4, while the Hellenic world at tech level 2. If alchemy is primarily a mystical rather than a science, then it may not be a technological skill. However, the tools and techniques did evolve, perhaps not as radically as some technologies. Alchemy Chinese and the above specialties differ so much there may be no default between them. If a default exists, it's likely at -6 or worse. Alchemists from these cultures might be able to learn something from each other, but they'd have to break down huge barriers in language, imagery, and assumptions. There is some evidence of an Indian version of alchemy. Certainly, ancient India had useful practical chemistry. Alchemy Indian might default to and from alchemy Hellenic at -6 and alchemy Chinese at -4. So we do also have this idea of alchemy as a spiritual discipline. And actually, I do see that today quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but whenever you're researching alchemy and stuff like that on the internet today, trying to find information, you run into the idea of alchemy as a spiritual tradition. Austin says, like having tokens of materials you gather some other time and then use your tokens for potions. Yeah, right, exactly. That was kind of what I was thinking in that example with that board game. In War of Kings, it would kind of be similar to that, or could be similar to that. What happens there in War of Kings, like other resource management games, you were getting like wheat and timber and cows and things like that, and then you were combining them together. Once you had a certain amount of each one of them, then you could build a village, or then you could build a road or something like that. So instead, if you had the tokens I've got some of this ingredient and some of that ingredient, instead of building a village, you now can cast or create a particular potion to cast on something. Just the general idea. Let's see here. I want to get into the potions and things like that you can brew. Yeah, alchemy is an aspect of other studies. We were just talking about that earlier. If magic is a complex academic discipline, of which alchemy is one branch, then alchemy skill might be part of any competent wizard's repertoire. It might even be a prerequisite for other magical activities, and the wizard who doesn't understand the basic interaction of magical forces with matter, alchemy, doesn't have a hope of getting spells to work. This could be a general restriction or apply only to elemental colleges, spells requiring contact with the spirit realm, or so forth. Alchemy could also be a vital part of a wizard's academic training, providing a symbol system or basic theory. The alchemy system skill may be a prerequisite for thaumatology or ritual magic. In some settings, those skills may be able to exceed alchemy by more than a couple of levels, unable to exceed alchemy by more than a couple of levels. The more advanced the grand theory, the more underlying knowledge is required. So historically, alchemy involved lengthy, repeated processing, heating, sublimation, distillation. Alchemists invented much of the standard equipment known to modern chemists and have used it heavily. Fantasy alchemy may be less tedious, but alchemy is definitely a laboratory-based skill, and the effective alchemist will need a well-stocked lab. So GURPS has lots of modifiers for this different kind of thing. So a home lab, no skill modifier. Professional grade lab gets you +1 to skill. Excellent lab, plus tech level divided by 2, skill rounded down, and you get that. Real world and alchemists assessed substances not only by chemical tests and sight, but by smell and sometimes even by taste. The risks involved, given the natural poisons, heavy metals, mercuries, fumes, etc., should be obvious. Competent alchemists doubtlessly knew what some materials were too dangerous for this, but their view of procedural safety would rarely pass in a modern laboratory. The logical consequence here only has a place in some of the most gritty, realistic of games, especially if anyone wants to play an alchemist. A sickly, hallucinating, short-lived, brain-damaged PC isn't much fun. Emphasizing that alchemy might involve a certain amount of eccentric risk-taking might be amusing, though, and could certainly justify an assortment of disadvantages. That's what I was thinking. That would be a great way to introduce disadvantages or your quirks or troubles in something like Fate. So let's see here. Alchemical inventions. So historical alchemists often claim to be working toward recreating ancient wisdom and perfecting standard procedures, but their art did involve some innovation. Alchemists played as low-tech mad scientists could emphasize this, pursuing outright novelty and clever solutions to problems. Alchemy can use new inventions subject to a few special rules modified and expanded from those in GURPS Magic. Now, GURPS does have, alchemical gadgeteering. And the idea of innovations and things like this. And quick gadgeteering. The quick gadgeteering advantage lets the alchemist, in a hurry, hastily produce any preparation that he knows how to make. This takes minutes equal to half the number of days it would normally require, rounding up. Because that's one of the problems that we're talking about in games. This takes a while. But we do have this idea, at least in GURPS, that, well, if we want the alchemist to be able to be more useful in the field, then, of course, GURPS, with all of its modularity and things that you can put in, does have the idea of quick gadgeteering. So that's an advantage that you would have to have. If the game master wants alchemists to be able to make themselves spectacularly useful, then he might not only let them invent new potions, but also allow them to capitalize on the gadgeteering advantage in the basic set, page 56, and possibly even Gizmos, page 557. And I still think that the alchemist, my conceptualization is working in the laboratory a lot. But if you've got, and I believe we're about to come to the idea that the different spells that you, or different elixirs you can put together themselves have skill levels that you learn. And if you learn them, though, and you're allowed to have this quick gadgeteering advantage, then rather than taking days to brew the potion, you can do it in minutes, which is not going to help you in a second-by-second combat situation, but it is going to help you like in the evenings or in the mornings, when you're setting up camp or before you start out the next morning or something like that. Then you would actually be able to do some alchemy in the field and get something that is going to, or create something that should potentially help you the next day. And you don't have to be thinking days and months in advance or whatever when you're going out to an adventure about what you've got to have. He must roll against the alchemy at the elixir's full default penalty, plus any penalty for an unmastered elixir, plus an extra -1 for improvised equipment. The alchemist can improve his ability with quick techniques in the usual way. However, such techniques differ from conventional ones, and he must learn them separately. Ingredient cost does not change. So, see, this book also talks about, and this would be something interesting to get into maybe here or later, like herb lore or herb lore is defined as an alternative approach, something like alchemy, but with fewer applications, but cheaper, more accessible ingredients. And so how you deal with herb lore in a game, I think, is also interesting, because that seems like we want people to be able to pick up useful things, or often we want people to be able to pick up useful things as they're adventuring, kind of like Athlas Kingsfoil, right? But how does that differ from alchemy, and how does that differ from general magic? The Angry GM did talk about that and the uses of herbs, and also the idea of crafting in general, because you could look at crafting as or as alchemy as a type of crafting that could be possible. Especially if it's done, especially if it's something that's going to be done in downtime. If you want to be an alchemist, but you got to be something else, but you're going to be doing your alchemy in downtime, you could think about crafting. Alchemy as crafting. Actually, I'm wondering if, let me pull up another book here. GURPS Magic. Let me see what we got in here before we go into herb lore, because I was really thinking, oh, okay, actually, let's go over here and take a look at GURPS Magic. I'm going to pull that one down. I'm going to pull up another one. GURPS Magic right here, because this one also has information on magic. There we go. Obviously has information on magic. It has information on alchemy and how to run it. Yeah, 210. Actually, I think this is where the specific elixirs are. Thaumatology was an expansion to this. Let's see here. The alchemical skill. Okay. So an alchemist may make any elixir from the list on page 213 to 219. So, okay, yeah, this is where my big list of elixirs are. Animal control, beast speech, bird control, dragon slaying, horsemanship, fetching and carrying, strength, hostile elixirs like aging, death, self-love, foolishness, madness, jealousy. So, like, for instance, so here are the different elixirs. And so if we're doing jealousy right here, we've got alternative names, green-eyed monster or Juno. And this makes the subject violently jealous of anyone of equal or superior intelligence, wealth, beauty, and so on, whatever attainments the subject most prizes. And it says that this potion lasts for a duration of 1d4 hours. It can take any form, and we've got different ways that we can prepare elixirs. The elixir is the general term here. It could be a potion that you drink, or it could be something that is inhaled, or it could be something that is swallowed. The amount of money that it costs, and all GURPS always just uses a standard dollar. You convert standard dollar to whatever it is in your game world that it's using. So recipe, $50, 2 weeks, and that creating a jealousy potion defaults to whatever your alchemy skill is, -1. So it's a little bit harder to make. I actually see lots of -1 alchemy skills. Death, a death potion, a poison doing D4 damage, and GURPS uses all D6s, is successful. A successful HT roll, health roll, reduces this to 2D damage. Symptoms include numbness and paralysis. A second dose will not be effective until an hour after the first. Illegal almost everywhere. Duration instant. Form any. Cost $500 to $800. Recipe $100. 2 weeks. Takes 2 weeks to brew. So these things take time. But that's the kind of information we've got on a whole bunch of different magical elixirs in here. So, to create an elixir, an alchemist must expend a certain amount of money for materials and a certain amount of time. The elixir will be brewing for 24 hours a day during that time and must be attended to by an alchemist at least 8 of those hours. So you can't go adventuring. Not far anyway. This needs to be the same alchemist, though this need not be the same alchemist through the process, but the lowest skill alchemist who can work on the elixir makes the final alchemy roll. An alchemist cannot pay attention to 2 different processes at one time, but he may manufacture in multiple batch of an elixir, multiplying the cost for the material by the number of doses produced. In each case, the final roll is at -1 for every extra dose of elixir produced. At the end of the required time, the alchemist rolls against the technique for the elixir in development. There is no critical success in alchemy. Either the process works or it doesn't. A failed roll ruins the ingredients, wastes the money spent on them. On a critical failure, make a second technique roll at -1 for each dose of elixir in the batch. If that second roll is successful, disaster has been averted. If he fails the second roll, roll 3d6 to see what happens. And then this is when, well, your laboratory could explode, right? 3 to 5, everyone within 100 yards suffers the effect of the elixir, or its reverse, 50% chance of each. All of a sudden, explosion destroys lab at 16 to 18. Alchemist takes 6d damage. I mean, you could kill yourself. We're talking about different kinds of alchemical laboratories, and you've got to be well stocked in order to not be taking penalties. Or if you have a particularly good laboratory, you may be able to have some bonuses. But there's more to alchemy than simply churning out elixirs. In many settings, alchemy is the closest thing to physical science there is, and alchemists have a few more tricks up their sleeve, such as detection and analysis. How can you recognize an elixir as an alchemical preparation when you see it? So that's kind of like identifying magical items, except for they're not magic. They're identifying alchemical items. But then identifying magical items as well, right here. An alchemist cannot identify magic items as precisely as a mage. However, an alchemist can determine whether or not an object is enchanted by spending an hour on analysis and $50 in material and making a roll at alchemy -2. Chemistry skill defaults to alchemy -3. So an alchemist is a chemist of a very specialized variety. This default should only be used for general knowledge. The alchemist could not perform complex chemical analysis. So this is our forms of elixirs right over here. Stray says, I have a list of D100 fantasy herbs and plants for my players. You know, I had a list from early internet of fantasy herbs. There was like 100 fantasy herbs or something like that. I wonder if it's the same one. I'm sure that's been upgraded, and there have been tons of things that have been put out in other books. But yeah, I like that. Austin says, hostile elixir self-love. Yeah, but in fact, we ought to look at that one. What did that one say? Hostile elixir self-love. Alternative name, Narcissus. The subject cares nothing for the opinions or well-being of any but himself. He is very happy and self-satisfied during this time. The chief legitimate use of this elixir is to treat depression. Duration 1d4 plus 1 hours, or 1d, just 1d plus 4 hours. Form any. Cost $750, $1,450. Recipe 20. I bet that's actually for ingredients and then also a fully prepared potion. I bet that's why we've got 2. I bet it's not a range. I bet we'll find out that that's ingredient cost or full potion cost. But see, recipe might cost $20. It takes 4 weeks to brew this potion. And defaults to alchemy -1. Oh no, it says here's what it's actually no, it's finally it gives the elixir's duration, its retail price in common magic and rare magic settings. Okay. So that is the cost of that in a common magic setting and the cost of that in a rare magic setting. Okay. The recipe is that's not the cost of the recipe, that's the cost of the material right there. Cost of materials and default penalty for making the elixir. So not everything has to be a potion. There are 4 physical forms of each elixir, each with different properties. A potion is liquid form taken by drinking. 1 dose of a potion affects 1 man-sized creature instantly. Potions lose their power in a day if left open or mixed with other things. Powder, solid in form. A powder must be eaten in food or dissolved in drink to be effective. It takes effect in 2D minutes. Powders can last a long time. There's only a 50% chance per year that a given powder loses its power while exposed to air. Powders mixed with food or drink last for 1 month. Is this pastille? How does pastilla? That's how my computer pronounces that. I had never seen this word until I encountered it here in GURPS Alchemy. A thumb-sized tablet kept in a sealed vial. When lit, it instantly flashes into flames and begins to fill an area 3 yards across and 8 feet high with smoke. Indoors, the smoke lingers about a minute. Outdoors, it disperses within about 10 seconds. Anyone within the affected area suffers the elixir's effects in 2D seconds. To avoid the smoke's effects, hold your breath. See, holding your breath. An unburnt pastille lasts a month if exposed to air, but is destroyed instantly upon contact with water. So that is something else for the alchemist to do once the alchemist has prepared the elixirs. That requires double the usual time and cost in order to prepare. Ointment is a cream or jelly. If touched, it sinks into the skin, taking immediate effect. A dose of ointment on a weapon or doorknob only affects the first person to touch it. Lasts a week if exposed to air, neutralized by water. Which I have not seen this level of detail in other alchemy magic systems. What's the effect of magical resistance, cost, and availability? Like most magical items, elixirs generally cost about $33 for each day they took to make, plus the cost of materials. We've got common and cost in common and rare campaigns. So then types of elixirs. Things that grant magical abilities. Medical elixirs. Here's lichdom. Transforms the subject under influence of the lich spell into a lich. Details are available elsewhere. Reanimation, health. I mean, there's a lot of things to brew. But you just got to figure out how to work this into the game if you're trying to be one in a way that actually keeps the action moving. Drunkenness, love, classic love potion. Eros, love potion. Yep. The subject falls in love with the next person of the appropriate sex he sees. The effect is permanent unless counteracted by a dose of alchemical antidote, another dose of love elixir, which causes the subject to love somebody else, or the remove curse spell. Duration permanent. Form any. Costs $900 or $2,000 in rare or common or rare settings. Costs $600 to make and 3 weeks to brew a love potion. Alchemical charms. So it doesn't always have to be one of those. In some settings, alchemists may turn their abilities to the manufacturer of alchemical charms, minor magical items that confer the effects of the alchemical elixir in a more lasting basis, which I also think is pretty cool, right? Another cool thing for alchemists to do. So like the trinkets and charms and things like that, the alchemist may also be responsible for those. For game purposes, a charm with protective powers is called an amulet, while a charm with empowering abilities is called a talisman. Are there addictive elixirs? I don't remember there being addictive elixirs here. And we didn't go by some that they probably bring it up. It might be brought up in Thaumatology. But I'm sure that's something that strikes me as something that GURPS would not overlook. I'm going to take a few extra minutes here to look at the rest of this alchemy right here. But anyway, the charms, the trinkets, putting things in an earring. I'm thinking about the Diablo characters who get to wear, a ring on a finger or something in their nose or something like that as a trinket. Okay, let's send that over to the alchemist. That sounds cool. Exotic preparations. So especially brilliant alchemists push the discipline to the very limits of possibility, creating strange and wondrous things. All of these preparations are very rare. Their formularies are almost never seen, and they must be regarded, and many may be regarded as mere myths. So alkahest is the universal solvent of the medieval alchemy and can really eat through anything: laboratory glassware, pure gold, or magical items such as adamant. Unfortunately, it can only consume 3 times its own volume in solid matter. After that, it's been neutralized. A single dose weighs half a pound and takes 1/120th of a cubic foot. A dose takes 1d4 minutes to eat through the mechanism of a lock or other device. Used to attack a living creature, it inflicts 1d damage of splash if splashed onto the skin, or 2d-1 per second if the victim is immersed in it. It's not normally possible to swallow alkahest. If an alchemist manages to trick a victim into swallowing the 2 components in succession, they cause 90 damage at the rate of 1 HP per 5 minutes as they mix internally. And you can treat that in some way. Yes, it can't be stored for later for obvious reasons. The penultimate ingredients for a single dose are carried in 2 vials, making them requiring a roll alchemy of -5. The final step does not need a skill roll, but must be performed by an alchemist. Once combined, the ingredients become active extremely quickly. Roll DX to throw the container. $250 per dose, 4 weeks to create. The homunculus. Right? The homunculus is among the rarest alchemical achievements. A duplicate of the alchemist or other person shaped by nurturing some of his body fluids into an alchemical vessel. The result is a second being with the same essence, able to serve its creator's goals. Most homunculi are tiny, but they don't have to be. The big ones just cost more. A homunculus is an ally with a minion enhancement. The alchemist sheet for the homunculus the character sheet for the homunculus is based on that of its original, but does not include his social traits. Instead, the homunculus has social stigma, valuable property, and is probably dead broke. If the homunculus develops properly, it will be a perfect likeness of the original's true form. If the original has lost a body part or functions through injury, the homunculus still has it. Homunculi are reprogrammable by their creators, but do not have slave mentality unless the original did. They also have a special variant of Reawakened that potentially grants them all of the creator's skills. The creator chooses what latent skills are active in the creation. We got starting cost right here. There's a continual outlay of nutrients, which increases as the homunculus grows larger. So that's why small homunculuses are generally small. It takes 2 weeks to remember how to speak. After that, activating latent skills takes 1 week per skill point. So this is also something that takes a long time, but would be something really cool to have. The process to create a homunculus requires a roll against alchemy -10, so it's also not easy to do. This is not a technique and cannot be bought up. And then the Philosopher's Stone. In legend, the Philosopher's Stone, or Lapis Philosopharum, has many remarkable properties. It turns base metals into gold. So what happens if you want one? In GURPS Magic, this is an actual stone that acts as an alchemical catalyst. It gives +6 to any alchemy roll in which it is used. Contact with it confers small benefits to the unskilled. A person who wears it as an amulet or piece of jewelry is at +2 to HT to resist disease and poison. Wearing it continuously grants the benefits of longevity. If left in contact with a metal object for 1d days, it turns the outer surface to gold to a depth of 1/16 of an inch. Such objects have given rise to the belief the alchemists are simply plating objects with gold as a deliberate fraud. The materials to manufacture a Philosopher's Stone takes $9,000, and the process takes 52 weeks, and the recipe defaults to alchemy -8. On the very unusual occasion that one comes up for sale, they cost at least $15,000. This over here, magically potent materials. So this says, let's see. Okay, this is the last page of alchemy. So let's take a look at this. Alchemy relies on objects intrinsically charged with occult powers for its raw ingredients. The sort of objects that become impregnated with magical energies varies between worlds. This is certainly setting specific. In some settings, herbs might have mystic potency. Others rely on mana organs taken from the carcasses of exotic beasts. Others still may attach magical significance to various minerals. In most worlds, the magical potential of any object derives from a secret or symbolic relationship to the desired subject or effect. For example, fire is red, rubies are red, hence rubies have magical affinity for fire. Exactly what we were talking about. Most powerful elixirs may also demand more than one exotic form of an ingredient. A simple healing elixir might be brewed from regular apples and ginseng, but a resurrection elixir might demand apples of the Hesperides. Magically charged objects have application beyond alchemy. They may be used as ingredients for spells or as components of enchanted items. For this reason, wizards and alchemists often compete over viable sources of these ingredients. In general, magically useful ingredients fall into 3 categories: consumable materials, such as herbs and other organic components, consumed in any arcane application, whether magical or alchemical; reusable items, such as metals and gemstones, which are not usually consumed when spell ingredients, but are used up in the manufacture of alchemical goods. Objects are manufactured items whose magical power lies in their intended use rather than their material. They are usually used in spells and enchantments rather than alchemy, and not usually consumed in their use. So some ingredients and their special purposes follow, right? Their purposes listed above include most of the colleges and several verb activities. See, okay, so this is the idea of alchemy tying into verb and noun magic, which I think it could work like that, like seeking, controlling, or transforming. So if your purpose, we got purpose air, consumable materials, something like aspen branches, eagle feathers, white orchids. Reusable materials might be, well, here's some words I don't know. Chalcedony, onyx, and sailcloths. Chalcedony, I don't know what that is. Whereas objects associated with air might be fans and horns. If your purpose is something about body control, then blood and bone might be consumable materials. Elm and ivory might be reusable, and dolls and cloths might be objects associated with it. Knowledge, fennel, honey, rue, reusable, agate, diamond, objects, books, and lamps. I see. I think this could be the start of, and I think that Thaumatology does expand on this, but a type of crafting system to craft magic items as well as alchemical kinds of items. And what kinds of things should you as the game master have people discover, or they need to go and get, or things like that. Because when I'm thinking about these things as crafting materials, you want people, I would like for people to be able to pick up copper, green jade, the kinds of things that we're seeing here, roses, and use them for those magical preparations. I think that's a cool way to do magic. Chalcedony is a cryptocrystalline form of silica composed of very fine intergrowths of quartz and morganite, kinda a teal polished stone. Okay, well, thank you, Austin. So now we know. So between especially GURPS magic with all of this, and then also what's included in Thaumatology, I think this is the most complete treatment of alchemy that I have personally seen. There may be others. We can be on the lookout for it and then take a look at alchemy in other books as well. I was really excited when I found this, particularly from my love of Dragonlord. You know, that's one I think that you may be able to play that on an emulator. And if we do a show like once a week where I try to play a video game, I kind of would like to see if I could find that game on an emulator and sit down and play it again. That would be fun. Probably aggravating. It's like I said, his control system was aggravating, but to be able to sit down and work with the alchemical laboratory again, I think that would be fun. So I love the treatment of alchemy in here, but the question is how, because it's a very good simulation, I think, of the kinds of things that you might be doing as an alchemist, but the problem is integrating it into the game. The problem remains integrating into the game. So we've got this great write-up, but game integration is the hard part. What do you think? Well, I want to find the write-up of alchemy in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. There wasn't a whole lot in there, but I remember thinking that, well, that was all that I had at the time, so I might as well take advantage of it. All right, let's wrap up here. I need to plan my day, so let's go over here and take a look at our index card productivity so that we can be accountable to ourselves for this evening. I'm trying to make it a good day, trying to make it a good day, great day, trying to get everything done.
Well, I manage my department, and I've been doing that for several years now.
Your department's just you, right?
Yes, Jim, but I am not easy to manage.
If you would like to join in on being more productive with me and everyone else here on the stream, but are in need of a system to help you out, here's an easy system that you can adopt and that I recommend. Grab a sheet of paper. I find that an index card folded in half is the perfect size for this. But if you don't have an index card, no problem. Any scratch piece of paper will work just fine. Just grab it and a pen or pencil. Think for a moment and come up with the 3 things that if you were to accomplish them today, you would know and feel that it was a great day. I bet you can take a breath right now and think for just a moment, and you will know what those 3 things are. We're going to call these 3 items our big rocks. Our objective is to move these big rocks during the day. Now, don't make the rocks too big because then you can't move them. Rocks that are too big to move in about a third of a day, we call those huge rocks. Moving the huge rocks is our major multi-day goals in life. But in order to move them, we have to break up the huge rocks into big rocks that we can actually pick up and move around. But we don't want these rocks to be too small, because although small rocks are easy to move, we don't feel sufficient accomplishment when we move them. Moving the big rocks makes us feel accomplished because they advance us toward our objectives in significant ways. You decide what size tasks are small, big, and huge rocks for you. If you get all 3 of these tasks done, then go ahead and add a 4th or a 5th big rock. But don't do that unless you've finished your big 3. You want to look at your list at the end of the day and feel success and accomplishment. You can use your phone for this if you want to, but I think a sheet of paper is better because then you don't have to pick up your phone to check your list of big rocks and potentially get sucked into all the distraction on your phone. The phone will also let you put 20 or 30 things on the list, no problem. Half an index card will keep this tight and focused. I know there are dozens of things on my to-do list on my computer, and that's too much. This method allows me to extract what I really need to do during the day and focus on that. If you're already using a productivity method that you like, no problem, use that. Do what works for you. Now let's write down our big rocks and try to get them done between now and the wind down live stream in the evening. That's where we check in, see how we did, celebrate success, and see how we can improve tomorrow. If you need encouragement during the day, look to the Ravenkeep Discord server. It's a great and constructive community. Let's take over the Geekverse. All right, so I'm looking at my big rocks here. I've got to get more YouTube videos out. I'm thinking that sitting here working on clipping some of the stuff that we've talked about from the morning grind that's still got to be done that hasn't gotten done. I also need to spend, I'm going to put a time limit on this, the amount of time. So see if I can get 20 YouTube videos done. I also need to spend about 60 minutes at least. I'll put a time limit on that, talking about Tabletop Simulator, because I've got to get Tabletop Simulator going for all of our purposes and things like that. I need to reach out to not Cubicle 7, Free League, because we've done the they got in touch. I let them know that we had done the Blade Runner review, and they were very appreciative of that. and they asked me some questions about stuff that was going on here on the Morning Grind. So I need to write back to Free League. I want to be sure that I do that so that they know we are active. Hey, that's an important part. I didn't really envision this as being like a thing for reviews. We're doing study analysis and things like that of our games, things like that, specifically for design. But I guess we are sort of reviewing things day to day, or several days a week. So that's an important point if you want to be a reviewer or something like that in the space long time, in the geek space, whether that's tabletop games or action figures or whatever it is that you want to investigate. That's a recommendation that I have, is to just start. If you want to be valuable in that space, then make sure that you are actually reviewing stuff. And it's stuff, especially if you're sent. You can't expect as a reviewer to be sent stuff in the beginning. So start reviewing whatever you've got tons of stuff of. And if you actually do it, then you will get noticed by publishers, but also the people in the community. And then maybe you might be sent stuff. But I remember I used to send out board games a lot for review. People who are requesting copies of the board games review. And it's expensive to ship somebody a review copy of a board game. And so I had a complex spreadsheet list of different reviewers for board games. And some reviewed, but I was trying to keep track. It was important to keep track of exactly, if you send something to somebody, do they review it or do a preview of it or whatever it is they're supposed to do, or do they not? Because you can send out a lot of people will request free stuff from you. Hey, will you send me a free copy of your game? I'll do a review. And then what are the chances of that review actually showing up? Very, very, very low. Very, very low. So if you want to be an RPG or action figure or tabletop game reviewer or a reviewer in anything, and you're thinking, hey, that might be something to do, the most important thing you can do is actually review the stuff you're sent. Review a bunch of your stuff and then review everything you're sent. All right. Austin says, I got to set up a grocery list, set up the new Keurig machine and smart home devices, and clean up the general living area today. That sounds like a great list. All right. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah. Grocery list. Typically, I've been using Saturday and Sunday for grocery shopping, but I think I'm good on grocery shopping at the moment. So got to think of that terms, not just a daily thing, but a weekly thing, right? Weekly cycles are important too. New Keurig machine and start home and smart home devices, and clean up the general living area. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, we went a little bit long, but that's okay. It's Sunday, and I wanted to look at Alchemy. So I will see you tonight. Everybody, have a fantastic day.